Egypt is not a single state on a map. It is an archipelago of islands, between which flows a river of cultural codes. On one side, Cairo, which never sleeps, the noise of car horns, the lights of shopping malls, new housing estates rising like glass out of sand. On the other, Alexandria, which speaks in a whisper, remembers old cafes, and recalls the times when the city's shop signs had Greek surnames on them. The Delta, where tea cools slowly and decisions are made at the kitchen table, not in a PowerPoint presentation. Upper Egypt, where words weigh as much as steel and honor means more than any piece of marketing jargon. Sinai and the Libyan borderlands, where advertising is not on television, but on driver's radio, and in the story that a salesman repeats like a prayer between the third and fourth coffee. In a country like this, advertising cannot be one. It has to have dialects, just like Egyptian Arabic has dialects. It has to sound different for New Cairo and different for Asyut. In one place, it sells aspiration and chrome, in another, trust and the family table. The same product, two truths. In Heliopolis, toothpaste shines like marble and speaks English. In Shubra, a child is crying, and a grandmother reminds everyone that this is our brand, not a fake. In Alexandria, a coffee ad looks out at the sea and talks about memory. In the Delta, cooking oil has no premium function, only the promise that it won't betray the taste of home. In Said, knives don't cut like butter, they serve the dignity of work. And in the South and on the desert borders, no drones, no billboards, one WhatsApp number, one reputation, one person who vouches with their face. Their campaign means who will stand surety for you. This mental map is merciless to brands with nationwide ambitions. In Egypt, nationwide often means bland or, worse, offensive. In one shot, you show a mini skirt and a trendy boutique. In the next, you get a boycott in Asyut and an apology the following day. You run to neutrality. You drown in the noise of Cairo. You try to shout. Alexandria looks away. Hence lesson number 1. Here the winner is not the loudest. The winner is the one who speaks in your code, in your rhythm, in your story. But Egypt does not live on tradition alone. This country has jumped stages, from paper leaflet to phone in the pocket, from bazaar to live commerce, from fairground to TikTok. There was no era of folders on PCs and discussion forums. There is immediately the era of algorithms that know when you finish prayer, when you ride the bus, when you eat iftar, when you check the price of sugar. Advertising begins to predict instead of asking. It speaks your dialect. Cairene, Alexandrian, Saidi. It puts in the mouth of AI the voice of Kulthum and the memory of Omar Sharif. It personalizes the image not by age, gender, but by life script. Whether you come back from work after 10 p.m., whether you message your cousin about a loan, whether you watch how-to videos from the Delta. In this future, which is already happening, the banner does not show itself to everyone. The banner listens, and then tells you your own dream in exactly the way you like to hear it. There is also a third dimension that marketers are afraid to name: collective psychotherapy. When the state does not provide certainty, when inflation eats shopping lists, when school and hospital fail, advertising takes on the role of comforter. It is the one that says, "You'll manage. You're not alone. Together, we'll build a bridge." It is the one that arranges the day, with tea and a song, with the refrain of a Ramadan campaign from a mobile operator, with the mantra of a bank about a better tomorrow. It is the one that explains chaos, turning it into a story in which you are more than just a number in a queue. In Egypt, advertising does not just sell, it regulates mood. It teaches what is appropriate to feel. In this episode, we go deep. We will show how regions write their own briefs for brands, why nationwide campaigns crash on the reefs of local codes, and why sometimes it is better to win in one district than lose in the entire state. We will look into the workshop of AI that lays down dialect and tone before a copywriter can blink. And we will ask whether these three orders, geography, technology, psychology, don't merge into one great function of advertising, sustaining the belief that the world is still holding together. If you think advertising is a nice video, Egypt will convince you that it is a language of survival. If you believe you can speak to everyone, Egypt will show you the bill for lack of humility. And if you think that data are more important than a tear in the eye, Egypt will teach you that emotion still has the upper hand over the chart. We begin. Egypt is not one country. It is an archipelago of mentalities, traditions, social classes, and cultural codes. Cairo and Alexandria, they speak different languages. The Delta and Upper Egypt, they live in different rhythms. The South, it resembles Sudan more than the capitals. And Sinai and the Libyan borderlands, a world of semi-nomads, borderlands, and soldiers. In this part of the episode, we will show how advertising in Egypt must adapt to the local cultural code, how brands make mistakes when trying nationwide campaigns, and why local success can be more valuable than success at state level. Cairo is the heart of advertising chaos. Here, everything has to be loud, modern, dynamic. But Cairo also has two faces: Elite Cairo, the modern districts; New Cairo, Heliopolis, 6th of October City, where aspirational campaigns dominate, Western style with English slogans, fashion, and luxury. Popular Cairo, the poorer districts, where advertising has to be loud, local, and emotional. Here everything works that has drama, family, a problem, and a miraculous solution. Example? The same product, toothpaste. For the elites, an ad with a model, a dentist, white teeth, jazz in the background. For the popular districts, a child is crying, a grandmother says, because this is an Egyptian brand, not a Chinese fake. Alexandria, on the other hand, is a city of pride, rivalry, and nostalgia. Alexandrians have their own identity. They feel more Mediterranean than African, more European than Arab. It is a city of memory. The sea, Greco-Roman heritage, and rivalry with Cairo. That is why ads in Alexandria more often show an aesthetic of cleanliness and quality. Use the language of local pride. Avoid overly aggressive messaging. The form matters more than the noise. Example: an ad for a local coffee brand. A woman looks out at the sea, remembers her grandmother who also drank this coffee before she emigrated to Greece. End line: in the taste of Alexandria lies our history. The Nile Delta, in turn, is advertising through family and trust. The Delta region, Tanta, Mansoura, Damanhur, is Egypt's agricultural heart. Its inhabitants are practical, religious, deeply rooted in the family structure. Here, advertising works when it appeals to the authority of mother or father, refers to health, cleanliness, halal, avoids extravagance and Western forms. Example: an ad for cooking oil. An older woman says, "When my children come home from the city, I cook for them with this, like in the old days." Final tagline: oil that will never betray the taste of home. In the Delta, intergenerational campaigns win. The product must have emotional value, not technological value. Upper Egypt, Said, is, in turn, tradition, masculinity, honor. In regions such as Asyut, Sohag, Kina, or Luxor, advertising must know the language of pride and respect. Here live many tribes and conservative communities where values like family honor, a man's loyalty, strength of character are more important than convenience. Advertising must therefore show products as an extension of dignity, use concrete rather than overly emotional language, not flirt with sexuality or mockery. That can be an insult. Example: an ad for kitchen knives. A man says, "My father made bread. Now I do. I need a tool, not a toy." Slogan: strength forged in Said steel. And the South and borderlands, Nubia, Sinai, the borders with Sudan and Libya. Here, Egypt meets other worlds: African, Bedouin, frontier. Here, advertising does not land via television, but via local radio stations, traveling salesmen, WhatsApp, and the bazaar. What matters is practicality, local language, Nubian, Bedouin dialects, The recommendation of a person, not a brand. Example, an ad on the radio for a car stereo. The voice says, "Proven on the road from Al Arish to Metru. It won't fail you in the desert." Sounds clear, like your word. This is oral, not visual marketing. Reputation matters, not the campaign. It happens that a brand creates one campaign and becomes hated in half the country. Example, a bank spot showing a woman in a mini-skirt shopping. In New Cairo, it is considered trendy. In Asyut, considered an insult to religion and to women. Result, the ad is pulled, the brand apologizes, local boycott. That is why major brands are increasingly creating regional versions of their ads, with different voiceovers, scripts, costumes, and narratives. To sum up, Egypt is many markets in one. Each region has its own cultural and advertising codes. The success of a nationwide campaign requires local adaptation, not copy-paste from Cairo. Rhythm, form, color, even accent, all matter enormously. Advertising that does not respect the local code becomes an enemy. Advertising that understands local honor and lifestyle becomes family. Some think Egypt is a country that will be left behind, that chaos, poverty, illiteracy, and old structures will block digital transformation. But that is an illusion. The truth is different. Egypt has skipped a few stages and jumped straight into the future. There was no long history of personal computers here. There was no culture of email and forums. But today, Egyptians have smartphones, algorithms, TikTok, artificial intelligence in their pockets, and advertising that knows what they want before they say it. This part of the episode is a look at Egypt in 2030, which begins today, where advertising is no longer created by people, but by systems that anticipate emotions, crises, time of day, and the rhythm of prayers. In Egypt, digital agencies are already using AI to generate slogans in local dialects, personalize ads for a specific Facebook user, predict customer behavior during Ramadan, analyze facial expressions in TikTok videos to assess whether the ad worked. Example, a startup from Alexandria created an algorithm that analyzes time of day, weather data, social mood from Twitter, and political mood from memes, and then selects the right ad format in real time. That is no joke. It is an algorithm of social loyalty. It is worth noting that in a country where many people do not read or don't want to read, audio advertising is gold. Companies are already testing systems that trigger when you enter a bus, are played through speakers at grocery shops, are personalized to the tone of the customer's voice, for example through AI analyzing the conversation with the cashier. There are also plans for invisible advertising systems, sending slogans to Bluetooth headphones within a 30-meter radius, reacting to phrases spoken under the breath near a smartphone. For example, "I'm hungry, my head hurts." Sounds like science fiction? In Dubai, it is already working. In Egypt, tests are underway. Advertising in the metaverse and live e-commerce. Egyptian brands are beginning to enter. VR, especially in education and real estate. Live commerce, sales streams with a buy now button, and a metaverse of local style. A 3D version of the bazaar or street with added promotions and games. Example, a campaign for a shoe brand. The user enters a digital souk, talks to an AI seller in a Delta dialect, and gets a personalized offer based on location and bank account data. This is not just advertising, it is interactive theater of consumption. Egypt is increasingly reaching for voice cloning, for example Kulthum speaking in a wrinkle cream ad, digital reconstructions of actors, for example Omar Sharif in a bank ad, deepfake influencers who speak 3 dialects at once, Cairo, Delta, Upper Egypt. It is a game on nostalgia, emotion, and the erosion of trust in reality. But people do not care, because what matters is not, is it real? What matters is, did it move me? Trust as a product is the new front of advertising. In digital Egypt, having a good product is not enough. You need authority, online reputation, social backup, a loyalty algorithm. That is why advertising begins to work not through messaging, but through AI recommendation, trust points in marketplaces, linkage to a bank account, and analysis of financial capacity, in order to adjust advertising to the customer's level. Example, the same mortgage spot shows a luxury apartment to a young person from New Cairo, a cheap plot of land to a farmer from Fayoum. The same bank, the same ad, but a different world, a different life. Egypt is a laboratory of chaos and modernity. Although Egypt is testing the metaverse and voice AI, 30% of advertising still works as printed leaflets. 40% of sellers still trust WhatsApp and neighbor recommendations. And 100% of digital campaigns must be adapted to religion, Ramadan, social structure, and morality. That is why Egypt is a unique laboratory. The old world meets the new. An AI that understands memes sits next to a grandfather with a piece of paper saying, "I buy gold." And in between them, a marketer who has to handle everything at once. To sum up, AI is already creating advertising in Egypt today, locally, emotionally, predictively. Advertising is ceasing to be something you see. It is becoming something that happens in your head. Egypt is skipping technological stages, creating its own version of modernity, more chaotic, but also more emotional. Trust, personalization, and culture. These are the three pillars of advertising's future. What if advertising in Egypt is not just a way to sell? What if it is the last available form of collective psychotherapy in a country where inflation destroys dreams, politics tightens the throat, religion divides, and the future is a fog? Advertising gives structure, narrative, ritual, the illusion of meaning. In this part of the episode, we will not focus on the product, the slogan, or the agency. We will focus on what advertising does to people and what people do to advertising. Because in Egypt, it is not the market that shapes advertising. It is advertising that shapes the emotional reality of the nation. Why do people need advertising? Not only to buy, but in order to feel that someone is thinking about them, see that others have similar problems, believe that there is a solution, be, for a moment, the main character of their own life. Advertising in Egypt is an empathic spectacle, with actors of everyday life, with emotions that everyone has known since childhood, with the promise that even if your life is falling apart, this brand understands you. Slogan as the mantrification of life. In Europe, slogans are a PR trick. In Egypt, they are a social mantra. Because you are worth more, says a milk commercial. Together, we will manage, says a bank. Be with us, be strong, says a mobile operator. I am Egypt, I am the future, says the president in an investment ad. These are not just lines. These are sentences Egyptians repeat to themselves in order to survive, like a prayer, like a parable, like a postcard from a better world that may never come, but is still worth dreaming about. Where does advertising end and faith begin? In a country where the following have failed: education, the state, healthcare, the labor market, advertising becomes a source of hope. It is advertising that shows a smiling family. It is advertising that shows peace and success. It is advertising that says, it's hard, but with us, it will be better. Sound familiar? That is what religion used to say. That is what school used to say. That is what the government used to say. Now it is said by a mobile operator, a tea brand, a cooking TikTok. Why are Egyptian ads so emotional? Because society does not trust logic. Because no one believes in data. But everyone believes in a mother's tears and a child's smile. Egyptian advertising is like neo-realist cinema. Too many emotions, too many coincidences, simplified characters, but very effective, because it is true in its fairy tale excess. Egyptians do not have time for psychotherapy. They cannot afford an existential crisis, but they can. Watch a TikTok, cry over a tea advert, share a campaign with the slogan, "You are not alone." It is an act of cleansing. For 30 seconds, for 3 minutes, for 1 click. And that is enough to get through another day. Advertising does not sell. Advertising casts spells. Sales, that is a side effect. Advertising in Egypt casts a spell on reality. It pretends the country is modern. It pretends the products are available. It pretends society is progressing. But this illusion is needed, because without it, only chaos remains. And that is why advertising becomes more real than life. Because it does not show how things are. It shows how things could be if we still believed. To sum up, advertising in Egypt is a form of national psychotherapy, surrogate spirituality, and emotional grounding. It is no longer about the product. It is about the need for belonging, meaning, and visibility. Marketing slogans have taken over the role of old social rituals: prayer, sermon, fairy tale, state television. In a country of tension, poverty, and uncertainty, advertising is the last thing that says, "You are not alone." In closing, let us ask, can advertising, in a country without a guaranteed future, be the last source of faith in something bigger than fear? Let us return to the beginning. To the chaos of Cairo, to the woman with a tea in her hand, the child in front of the television, the boy on TikTok who does not know he is a star. Let us go back to the billboard that shines brighter than the minaret, and to the whisper of the street vendor who sells perfume, or maybe just stories. Because Egypt does not need advertising in order to buy. Egypt needs advertising in order to live. Advertising has become something more than a message. It has become a promise of stability, a script for everyday life, a space for escape, and a tool of survival in a country where nothing is given once and for all. This is not an advert for a product. It is an advert for emotions that save the nation's psyche. What does Egypt's advertising say about Egypt? That it is a torn country, between the West and Islam, between nostalgia for the pharaohs and the hunger for a digital tomorrow, between pride and despair. But it is also a country in which advertising treats the lack of therapy, softens the pain of unemployment, gives a language to people no one listens to, and turns every product into a story we want to be part of. And if advertising stops working, it will not be the end of the market. It will be the end of faith. Because in Egypt, advertising does not only sell. Advertising soothes, regulates, guides. Without it, chaos will become real chaos. Without it, the street will lose its narrative. Without it, no one will remind people that there is still hope, even if artificial. And maybe advertising in Egypt is not unique at all. Maybe it is just a mirror for all of us. Because is it not the same in Poland, France, the USA? The slogan, "Because you deserve more." The smiling child's face over soup. The influencer who also had it tough, but bought a cream and made it. Perhaps Egypt simply does not pretend this isn't true. Perhaps there no one hides the fact that advertising has replaced everything that has failed. Advertising in Egypt is not just a marketing system. It is a national nervous system. It is a channel of communication between dream and reality. It is the last fairy tale people believe in, not because they are naive, but because they have nothing else left to believe in. Let us go back to the map. You already have these islands in your head. Cairo, with 2 faces, Alexandria, proud and clean, the Delta, family-oriented and halal, Syed, tough and tuned to honor, the borderlands, practical and whispered. You also have the digital layer, algorithms that lay down dialect, analyze facial expressions and TikTok frames, line up with prayer times and with the weather over the Nile. And you have the hardest layer, advertising as the mantrification of life, as a substitute for rituals that religion, school, and the state once provided. All of this adds up to one thesis. Egypt does not have a unified market. Egypt has a nervous system that works by regions, like muscles contracting separately. That is why the best campaigns do not try to connect everyone with one spot. They design bridges between islands, One version speaks in a whisper to Alexandria, another sings loudly to Cairo, a third stands straight as steel in Said. In each version, the product is the same. What changes is the dignity with which it is served. Technology does not resolve these contradictions, it accelerates them. AI does not flatten Egypt. AI differentiates it faster, more precisely, mercilessly. It learns your laughter, your anger at prices, your habit of changing buses on the Qasr El Nil bridge. It uses voices you love and nostalgia you cannot resist. It makes advertising cease to be on the screen and start to be in you, like a refrain you hum before you even hear it. And psychology? Here comes the most important question. In a country where the future is a fog, does advertising become the last universally accessible tool of hope? If so, let us not judge it only by sales figures. Let us judge it by whether it gives people a language, whether it allows them to say, "I am not alone," whether, for 30 seconds, it restores a sense of control. This is not romanticizing marketing. It is a sober diagnosis of a mechanism that is already at work. Better to understand it than pretend it does not exist. Finally, 3 simple rules we take from this journey and lay on the table like 3 landmarks. Locality over loudness. I would rather win one district with an honest code than cover the country and wake up to a boycott on half the map. Personalization without contempt. AI can speak in my dialect, but if it speaks from above, the internet will clap back in a second. In Egypt, arrogance burns faster than paper. Emotion that does not lie. Advertising can cast a spell on reality, but it cannot insult it. If you say, "We are together while prices are rising," show hands, not just slogans. Emotional truth is the only currency that does not lose value in inflation. And one more thing, the hardest. What will happen if advertising stops working as a mood regulator? If people stop singing its refrains and start calculating bills without a mantra in the background? Then not only the effectiveness of campaigns will end, the glue that has for years stitched everyday life into a bearable story will end. In Egypt, advertising is sometimes the last light in the corridor, sometimes artificial, sometimes flickering, but for many, the only one. And maybe this is not Egyptian exceptionalism at all. Maybe, looking at Egypt, we see the mirror image of our own streets. In Warsaw, Paris, Houston, we also hear, "You deserve more. Together we can do it. With us, the future is better." The melodies and costumes differ. The mechanism is the same. Advertising as the language through which civilizations tell themselves that tomorrow makes sense. Egypt just does not hide that this is how it works. So let us close with an image. Cairo at night. A taxi drives over the bridge. Someone carries a tray of bread on their head. A boy is recording a TikTok. A grandmother stirs tea. And the billboard over the Nile shines with a slogan you already know by heart. This is not just advertising. This is the city's next breath. And as long as that breath goes on, there is a story in which one can endure. And we will return in the next part to the specifics. We will break down cases of regional failures and victories, show how brands are learning to speak dialect, not caricature, and how to design campaigns that not only fit the algorithm, but fit into people. Because in Egypt, that is the only way.